Network's family of shows. Available everywhere
Hello everyone and welcome back into the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. And for our fourth segment of the day, we're going to continue with our NFL awards updates. We are getting to the conclusion of the regular season, and thus we might have to start looking more into NFL awards and who we might think wins. And this race here for the Offensive Rookie of the Year might be the most exciting, because we all thought at the start of the season to the middle point that one player was running away with it, and his name was Jaden Daniels. But over these past couple of weeks, as he hit a rough patch, and Bo Nix and that Sean Payton offense started to get going, started to bring out his best abilities and traits for this Broncos team, it started to become a one-horse race. And then Brock Bowers throws his hat into the ring with a couple of stretches of good performances that we've won out of him as a solid tight end, perhaps the future of that position for Las Vegas. And still a lot of other players going under the radar in this race as well. But I do feel like those two guys are separating themselves, but I still want to acknowledge this rookie class for what it is. A very talented group I'm excited to see mature in this NFL. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the updated Offensive Rookie of the Year. Starting at the number 5 spot, a player who unfortunately has been a little bit too inconsistent to make a name for himself in this race, but I feel like could be a very special player on the stretch if this team gets its head straight in terms of getting new ownership, potentially getting a new head coach who can truly develop a guy like him and truly utilize him to the best of his abilities, and that is Brian Thomas Jr. Now let's be clear. This year's iteration of the Jacksonville Jaguars was not helpful in terms of developing and helping Brian Thomas Jr. mature. And that's why he sits at number 5 at plus 15,000 odds in this award race, when he could have potentially been one of the top contenders for this award. The reason being is that I don't necessarily think Doug Peterson is the proper coach to help him get to the points that he wants to go. But when I look at this team and I look at its long-term future, and the decision they made to tie down Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. If they get a coach who can unlock that in him and can get this Lawrence-Thomas connection going, then this is a very special partnership we're looking at over the next 5 to 10 years in the NFL. And while he's definitely not going to be in the running for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, that does not mean that his career will not skyrocket in years to come should the Jaguars get this head coaching position right. Because if they do, then Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a very special talent to worry about in the league as the Jaguars get better and better. So, for now, he sits outside of the running for this award. But in the future, he'll be a very, very special receiver for Jacksonville in their rebuild. In the number 4 position, a guy who has been a little bit too inconsistent as well, the number 1 overall draft pick, Caleb Williams. He's had a really rough season. Not what you would expect out of a number 1 overall draft pick. But there have been a lot of bright spots, especially when in the midpoint of the season they decided to fire Shane Waldron and bring in offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, who was the interim head coach. And even in his first game as a first-time head coach, he kind of screwed the pooch with that one. In the time before his interim status, he really brought out the best in Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams' best moments have come when he's operating outside of structure, and it's come as a scrambler and finding his players downfield. And when he moves in the pocket, I feel like he can become something much more close to what we saw from him out of USC. But also, the offensive line issues abound. The sacks abound. He is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. And that's the reason why at plus 6,000 he sits at number 4 and not challenging the other 2 rookie quarterbacks in this race. He still is a special player. He still has the raw potential needed to truly elevate the Chicago Bears team into contender status in the future. But if they don't fix the offensive line, if the new head coach kind of wants him to play a little bit more like Bo Nix perhaps, where he's a little bit more structured in play, then chances are his career won't take off like we expect it will. But if they get the head coaching position right, this offensive line's issues get fixed and adjusted, then Caleb Williams could be up and running in his NFL season next year. because I do think he's still going to be a special player for this Bears franchise, and I do think he can be, finally, their first franchise quarterback. And then at number 3, this is a guy who came on a little bit too late, but to even be at number 3 in this rankings from where he was and where his team was, for that matter, is really special. And at a tight end position, it's very special to think about. Brock Bowers. A lot of people believe this guy is the future of the position, and I'm of that belief too. But the Raiders have to nail this 2025 NFL draft. They have to either get Shador or Cam Ward, try and build hype in this team again, and then allow Brock Bowers to be Brock Bowers, because there's truly no tight end quite like them. He plays like a wide receiver. There's no other way to describe the way he plays. This is a guy who is big, physical, but is faster than your prototypical tight end, can block as well, and ultimately perhaps is their best target out of any of their weapons. Jacoby Myers might be a special player if, he can get going with their next QB, but I feel like Brock Bowers is the guy to key in on in this rebuild for Las Vegas. And if it's Antonio Pierce, this is a guy who you really like as a physical head coach. You have to want to bolster in your squad. But if it's someone else, potentially Dion, you have to realize that your son might not be the star should he follow you to Las Vegas. This is the star of this team. And I feel like these past couple of games are the reason why he's at number 3 at plus 1,200 at this position. But I do feel like the inconsistencies in his season would keep him from challenging these top 2 guys. And also because of the fact, the tight end position has never been as pretty of a choice as a quarterback or a young rookie quarterback lining it up, much like CJ Stroud did last year, much like what these next 2 guys have been doing over these past couple of weeks. So, as much as I would love to say Brock Bowers could be the top contender for this award, he's doing very special things to the position, and I wish him the best in his NFL career, and I hope that the Las Vegas Raiders can be contenders for him. Right now, at this point in his career, his rookie year, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of finding the right elements to get this Las Vegas Raiders squad back to relevancy. And Brock Bowers was a great start, but now you have to start looking ahead. Now you start having to build a championship pedigree again. And Brock Bowers is going to be a huge part of that. But right now, he's not in a position where he can beat these 2 guys and what they've done, because both of these guys are potential playoff hopefuls. And so that's why I feel like Brock Bowers is 3 on this list compared to these other 2. And then at the number 2 position is one of those guys, Bo Nix, who a lot of people would never have said would be in this position at the start of the season to now. But Bo Nix, whatever happened potentially after the bye to now, has been one of the most special players, but special rookies as well, at the quarterback position. I feel like, another reason why his status has skyrocketed in this race is because Sean Payton's offense, mind you, is very difficult to learn. It's not for everybody, like what we saw with his failure with Russell Wilson. It's a very specific, structured offense. But Bo Nix has been able to make his own because, unlike Russ in Denver, I feel like he really wants to bring out his dual threat abilities to help this offense. And because of that, it opens up a lot more for this team. It may not be the most talented team offensively on paper, but guys like Mims, guys like Vele, guys like Williams have all elevated their status because of the elevation of Bo Nix's game. And Bo Nix is someone who now has the attention of not just his team, but the league for what he can be in the Sean Payton offense. And if Sean Payton continues to rely on him in more ways than he did with Russ, then look out, because this could just be the start of a very special career for Bo Nix in Denver, and a very special partnership between him and Sean Payton. And I don't often say this about quarterback, because Sean Payton very rarely finds a hidden gem like a Drew Brees in his career. It's very difficult to give yourself over to a guy like Sean Payton. But Bo Nix has done that incredibly well his rookie season. So he deservedly sits in the number 2 spot, but I do think that when we look at this number 1 guy, there's just something a little bit more electrifying about picking Jaden Daniels over him. At minus 250, Jaden Daniels remains the favorite. He is getting challenged a little bit. But the difference between him and Nix is that Nix, yes, has looked like the better of the two over these past couple of weeks. But the way Jaden Daniels went about his prolific start to the season was unheard of. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, he's going to fade a lot more in the stretch because Cliff Kingsbury offenses never last. They're 8-5. And not for nothing, Cliff Kingsbury is still a very talented guy for diagnosing the best of what Jaden Daniels can do. And yes, it may not work against elite opponents, but I do feel like Jaden Daniels loves this style of football, and when he's playing it well, he's playing it better than any rookie could. And I know that it's a little bit too college style like for people's liking, but it works for him, and it has worked consistently for the Washington Commanders to this point. We're going to have to see how he looks down the stretch after this bye, but I do feel like Jaden Daniels right now is still the prospective favorite for the reward. As much as I respect what Bo Nix has done these past couple of weeks, I can't ignore what Jaden Daniels has done in Washington so efficiently as well, and so electrifying in certain moments that I can't necessarily deny him. Let me know what you think about this award race in the comments section, because it's a good one. It can get pretty heated down the stretch here, but coming up next, we conclude potentially my final ever weekly Shadow Report with the key wide receiver cornerback matchups to look out for in your first fantasy playoff matchup. I'll be right back after this short break to talk about it.